Let's start with those big swings that we've seen in Bitcoin, though. The price falling as much as 15% over the weekend. And Zach, a number of headlines that we saw on this front that investors pointing to. One, we saw potentially the concerns around the Treasury Department considering a crackdown on money laundering conducted through digital assets. And then also overnight, some interesting comments from the deputy governor of the PBOC, the central bank over in China, calling Bitcoin an investment alternative. A lot of investors taking note of that, largely because Bitcoin has largely been banned in China. They were one of the biggest buyers prior to that 2017 ban. It feels like there's a shift in tone potentially from what could be a really big market.
And also, I mean, obviously, China controls a large chunk beyond the majority of mining activity as well. So there were other reports looking in at blackouts in China's mining regions too, where a lot of those operations are set up as potentially having a trigger effect here. But when you look at kind of the forced liquidations that were in that space too, that's also something that gets even more interesting when we talk about volatility here, because a lot of people will say we got institutions coming in here, big money's coming in here, so that should mean we're more stable. But when you think about even just what happens in the stock market with algorithms through here, forced liquidations and continued volatility kind of builds on itself. And that was kind of the case with DeFi taking off here. It was kind of our first experience since February, the biggest quick sell-off that we've seen since February here. And I wonder how much that played into this too, kind of selling, begetting selling there. But also, AIkiko, when we step back and look at this, just in terms of the questions over the weekend, because some people might have looked at it as a potential top here and saying, look, this could be the end of the run we've seen this year. But other people are pushing back on that. Just want to show a full screen of what we have here from Glassnode data looking at net unrealized profit and loss. It's kind of one of those measures we look at in terms of greediness here. And you can look back at prior cycles, back when that, we'll call it NUPL, net unrealized profit and loss measures back here. You can look back at the other cycles there when it spiked. In 2011, we saw the highest there, 0.878, the highest ever recorded levels there when we look at that metric. In 2017, we were at 0.793. Still a long ways to go here, though, where we were at all-time highs. That same reading was just 0.71. So you can look at that and say, look, there's still some money left here. And Glassnode also had other data saying that wallets that had long held Bitcoin were net buyers, or rather just not selling during that 15% drawdown we saw over the weekend. So there's still a lot of things to point to here, I think, AIkiko, that would show you there's still room to run. And of course, when you look back at it, we're still, what, at 55, somewhere around that level right now. So no need to panic just yet, I don't think.
Yeah, and Zach, when you talk about some people saying we've seen the top of Bitcoin, of course, we've seen that story or we've heard that story many times before, only to be proven wrong. And last week, we were talking about Bitcoin hitting that record, topping $64,800. That was largely on the momentum that came through from the listing from Coinbase. And we've seen Coinbase move in tandem with some of the declines we saw over the weekend on Bitcoin. Shares there for Coinbase down in the session as well. Let's move on here. Oh, go ahead.
I just got one more, AIkiko, because I want to make a bold call to kick us off here on the week, right? If we're going to start this week off right, we got to have one bold call. I would just say, we talked about it last week as we were watching Dogecoin. That's one of the most popular tickers on the site still, even after we saw it come back a bit, but still holding those gains above 30 cents. This is less than 1 cent to start the year. Keep in mind where we're at. And Coinbase, just to connect the dots, still doesn't have it on the platform. So bold call. I think they revisit that soon, considering how much craze right now there is around Dogecoin.
Oh, we're going to see if we can play that back later in the week, Zach, to see if that call holds. But I mean, talk about investors questioning how speculative the action is. Dogecoin, one of the key ones that they pointed to say, where is the value in that? So we'll be watching that to see if Coinbase brings that into the fold as